Welcome back, guys. In this lesson, we would go a little deeper and use the skills that we have learned when it comes to regular expressions and use them in Google Tag Manager. So I'll show you all the different places where you can use regex. See, I'm not going to take you through every implementation where regex is needed, but I hope that you to learn Google Tag Manager and a bit of JavaScript to really understand how this Tag Manager ecosystem will work. Or if you want to learn about Tag Manager, you want to get your hands dirty, get into the program, which is our measurement bootcamp. And what you learn in bootcamp is something so special that I don't think people with 7 to 10 years of experience can even fathom. Right? So it's a very comprehensive, very tough program. It's not for everybody. We don't enroll everybody. We want people who are really smart and have working knowledge on Facebook ads and understand the entire ecosystem of digital marketing and analytics. So join me as I take you through the GTM as to where all you can find usage of this regular expressions that we have mastered in the last 20 videos. So you see, this is a tag manager. So I go to triggers. When you go to trigger, you set up different triggers. For example, if you understand tag manager, I want to fire an event to Facebook, or I want to fire an event to Google Analytics. So when I want to fire an event to Analytics or Facebook, I set up a tag, right? So, but for every tag, that means every tag to fire, there needs to be one trigger. And trigger is a condition that has to hold true. Trigger is nothing but a condition that has to hold true. That's when the trigger will be satisfied and the tag will fire, right? So for example, if I want to send an event to Facebook on page U, example, just take page U, right? So what I can do is, Prashanth, think for example, Prashanth, I have multiple, thank you pages, right? Multiple thank you for Pixel course, thank you for Regex course, thank you for JavaScript for marketers course, so thank you for the application, right? So whenever people fill this form, I want to send an event to Facebook called as purchase event. I can't go and create 4 tags. One tag purchase, fire it on this thank you page, create another purchase tag, purchase standard event tag, and fire it on some other page. Do you want me to create 4 triggers and 4 tags? No, that's going to become very hectic. I hope you understand. That's going to become very hectic, and that's going to only trouble me. Right? That's going to make my work more redundant, right? Monotonous, and I would waste my time duplicating the same stuff that I've already done. So what regular expressions will do is, rather than creating 4 tags and for each tag put up one trigger, you can only create one tag and you give the conditions in the trigger saying fire it on all 4 pages. But how do you do that? Regex, because regex matches a pattern of string, right? So for example, I want to fire it only on pages. Let's say I'll say like this. Let's suppose I take page page URL. See, when you come here, earlier so far we were using say equals, contains, starts with, but you see something called matches regex, and here you give a pattern. You don't have to give slash because it is already understood. So you simply put, for example, if I put I want to fire this purchase tag only on confirmation pages. So what I'm going to do, I will give something like confirmation. That means it will literally fire on pages which matches with this pattern, which is confirmation. On every tag, if you put this trigger, or for whatever tag you want to put this trigger, this will fire on every page where page URL matches a pattern called confirmation, right? Or maybe let's say I want to fire it only on 4 pages. Let's say I want to fire it only on 4 pages. So what I can do, I can say rather than saying page URL, I'll say page path. See, page path. Here I can write something called contact. I'm just giving some example. Contact us, or maybe I can write like this. Download syllabus or download brochure. I can simply do this, right? Okay, if you still want to escape it, you can still escape the the hyphen. Now the whatever tag that you want to set this trigger with, it will fire whenever people go to any page whose page path contains download syllabus or download brochure. And here you have something called matches regex ignore case, which is, remember the modifiers that we use. You don't have to do that. You can simply put this one and automatically it will work. So even though you enter something which is case sensitive, this will be converted, right? So you can choose it. So anytime you create a trigger, you can use regular expressions. Prashanth, sometimes you say, I want to fire my tag only when people click on buttons. Okay, you want people click on buttons, you go to some clicks and say when some clicks, whose click text contains. So whose click text matches regex. Apply now. Or Buy now. So what will happen? It will only fire when click text matches apply now space. I gave backspace S and this. Or if no, sometimes you put Prashanth, when click text, some people do like this simple stuff. They simply go and put page URL contains dot star. Now what is dot star? You might know. Dot means literally it matches any character. Star means 0 or more times. That means literally it matches anything. It is like a wild card. So now when I put like this, right, rather than saying fire it on all pages, I can simply put page URL matches rejects dot star. That means literally it fires on every page. No, Prashanth, I want this to fire only when fragment is there. Only when fragment is there. Now remember, if you want to fire only when fragment is there, in that case, what you can do? I'll give you one example. Prashanth, I want to fire when click text contains. I want to fire when click text contains like this. When click text contains Google-ads or Google-AdWords. Now you see when I come here, when I put like this, it matches Google. It matches Google-ads or Google-AdWords. So I don't have to write two different triggers. I can create only one trigger and I put conditions. That's exactly what we were learning. We write a pattern that will match a particular, format of string. Right? You come here, you can do that. No, Prashanth, I want to fire only when page URL contains fragment. When page URL contains fragment. Now let's go and write for a fragment. Now imagine if a page URL contains fragment, what will it will be? measuremarketer.com/ or they can put whatever URL, right? They can put whatever URL, start application, and then they can put starters, for example, whatever, syllabus, whatever. If I put like this, I'll show you one example. If you go to google.com and type in measure marketer, you find my Google My Business. But when you put your cursor on website, you see on the left side, it says measuremarketer.com/fragment maps. It says measuremarketer/fragment maps. Fragment is there here. So I want this to fire only when fragment is there. So in that case, what do? I can go with default variable that I can create in GTM, which is called fragment. You see, I already have something called fragment. I can simply go put fragment matches, maps, or Google Maps. So whenever the fragment value contains this, I can simply put it. Oh no, Prashanth, whenever fragment is there, oh, you want to do that? So you see download. So how do you map it? You simply put dot star, it will match everything. And then you put hash, it will match till hash. And then you can put what? In capture group, you can put W+ and get it. Now you can get this download. So you can write a custom JavaScript. You want me to write custom JavaScript for it? I'll show you how to write custom JavaScript for it. So here I'm using a fragment variable, but here you can write a custom JavaScript variable, and that variable you can put it here and say matches, maps and whatever. I'll show that as well. So you can go and choose matches rejects here. So you can set them up in a lot of triggers, and you can save your tags as well. Rather than recreating or duplicating the tag for 4 different triggers, you can only create one tag, but that tag will fire when you put this one trigger which has 4 conditions. And that 4 conditions will map when you set up a trigger which uses matches rejects. Right? Let me show you. In trigger, I'll show you there's something else as well. There's something called custom event trigger. When you go to custom event trigger, there are different type of event triggers. For that, you need to really understand GTM. So I go to custom event. Here also you have matches rejects. I hope you're now able to understand. And this custom event is an event that we push into data layer. Remember, data layer.push. If you understand data layers, anytime you want to push something into data layer, you push it with an event key. Why event key? The value of the event key can be used as a custom event trigger. In my website, whenever people come to my website, homepage, Measure Marketer, you're asked to enter the name. The moment you enter your name, what will happen? I push a data into data layer, and the name of the event name is name entered. So when I write like this, right, when I set this trigger will fire whenever people come to my site and enter their name. The moment they enter the name, I am pushing a value into data layer with an event key like this. Right? And I really don't know, Prashanth, whether it is name E entered or capital E or small e. So that's why I can use matches rejects. Right? Match a name entered or I can give lot of R. I think you might be able to understand. You can put real regular expressions here and you can see if that works in real time. Right? And you can do some amazing stuff wherever you think you wanted to, avoid duplicating the same stuff. You can simply use regex. And I use extensively regex rather than creating 4 tags. I simply create 1 tag and put regex in the triggers. And that will only send an event when people click on buy now, it will go. When people click on apply now also, it will go. Because in the trigger condition, I said the event should fire when this is or this or that by using a pipe. I can use dot star. It will fire on every page. Right? And then, let me write one custom JavaScript variable also for you. Let me show you if I could write one custom JavaScript variable for you. In the previous video, we discussed about the test and the search and the execute and the replace, right? So I can write custom JavaScript here, though it's not built in. So let's go to user defined variables here. When I go to user defined variables here, I can simply go choose custom JavaScript. Here I can write a function. So if I write function here, that function you can write variable. Oh, let me go and see that if I already have it. I hope you're able to understand what this code does. If not, I'll explain again. You see, this matches what I've given. Because it's a custom JavaScript, I'm giving this also MGI, multiple line, G global, I case sensitive. So it will match anything after hash, right? And this whatever you put in parentheses is called capture group, right? So whenever I use execute method, what will happen? You see this here. Whenever I use this execute method, so let me close this and let me run it. So what it will do, it will get me undefined. Why is it getting me undefined? Regex.execute of string. You see it is getting me this. So what if I say result of 3 I want to get? 0, 1, 2. It's not 3, it is 2. When I put 0 of 2, it will get me syllabus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. Remember execute, what it will do? The first item in the array will be the full match and second item will be the first match group, capture group. Second item in the array will be the second capture group. If the capture group is not there, then it's only written one element or one item in the array which is going to be the full match. So I'm simply going to use this. So let's go. I write result of 2. So rather than doing console log, what I'm going to do is I'll say return result of 2. So I wrote a function here. Now see what we have. Now I'm giving syllabus here. Oh, just to be on safe side, I'm giving syllabus here. So, or rather than giving here a constant variable, what I'll do is I'll give a variable here. I'll give a variable as page URL. Now what I'm going to do is here string means page URL, right? In this case, what I have done, I entered exact string, but here I can dynamically assign a string variable, what value the page URL. And then I say if in the page URL, if it contains what hash. So I want you to perform an execute method on that regex. No, so on that string and the pattern I gave it here and I want to return the result of 2. Now let's go and see. I'll give CJS fragment. Now see what is going to happen. So I simply go click on preview. Let me go to preview mode. Let me forward it for a while. Now see, so what I've done is I entered the preview mode. I just paused the video for a while because it was taking little time for the preview to load. Now preview, I came to the home page and I then came to this particular page, second page called I went to store, I came to crystals. Now you see, if you want to go to tag assistant, you can see crystals. That is the container load. If you still want to see what are the variables will be the crystals URL. The page URL will be the crystal URL. Where is page URL? You see page URL will be crystals, right? Now see, what I'm going to do, remember I put the code. Here I'm going to put something called crystal as regex. Okay, I'm typing in regex. I refresh the page. When I refresh the page, what will happen? The page will reload again here. You will find that in the debug console. I'm trying to refresh it. Now you see again it will load. When I go to container load or when I go to DOM ready, you see the CJS that I created, CJS fragment. CJS fragment is still, why is it not working? Let me go and check. Oh, page URL is there, but why is it not taking any regex here? It has to show me regex, but why page URL is not having any regex? Let me refresh the page once. Why it is not getting captured? Let me do one thing. Let me go to the console. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this link. When I click on the link, it is going to take me to a new page, and that new page will have a URL called regex. So let me try and see why it is not working. The page URL is not capturing the fragment. Because it is not capturing the fragment, it is getting undefined, but ideally it should work. It should definitely work. The code that I've written should work, and that code should return the value of the fragment. I showed you this code as well. You see, this is the code which will match what? Okay, let me take this page URL. Now if I, just to show you, right? So what I want to do is I want to go to this particular URL. Now copy this. I'll show in the regex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this here. Now you see regex is captured, and here regex is captured in what? 1. So I'm saying, so if you come to the code here, it is saying let me give the value here. If I give the value here and it still return, it is giving rejects. It has to work, but for whatever reason, it's not working. Maybe because the site is working in such a way that they're not being captured, or there should be something wrong with the site. But this code should work. This code should return what value? The value which is the fragment. This is exactly what Google does when you go and create a tag manager variable called the variable type called. When you come to user defined variables, when you come here, you create a new URL variable. In the URL variable, you have an option called fragment. So when I give the fragment, it will capture the fragment value. And how is it going to capture? The same thing. It will, on the backend, they have written regex. That regex will go look into the URL, find a pattern. If anything is there after the hash, it will get that value, and that value it will display here for the variable that whatever we created. To be very sure, I want to show you once. I have another user defined variable called fragment. That fragment should at least capture fr. You see, oh, it is getting captured. It is getting captured. Regex is getting captured, but there it is not getting captured. There should be something wrong here. One moment. Fragment is captured regex, but the URL does not capture. The URL is not capturing fragment. What URL I gave? Let me go back and check once. What URL I gave? Did I give page URL? Exactly. Yes, I gave page URL. But the problem is when I go to page URL, it is not showing me in the page URL the thing. There should be something wrong on the backend, or maybe I had to refresh or delete all the cookies and try again. But definitely they should work. Right? So there are different places in which you can use regular expression. So one is this. Here you can write a custom JavaScript to retrieve any value of your choice. Any value. You want to get the subdomain, I told you. If you want to only get certain part of a string, for example, Prashanth, I told you in the previous videos, there are certain websites where the ID of the product or the transaction ID, after you go to thank you page, the transaction ID is stored in the URL. So you want to retrieve that. What do? You write a regex pattern, and that ID you try and put in the capture group, and you write a return saying I want that particular capture group value, and that value is stored in this particular variable, whatever you give it. And that variable you can use it in some other conditions, maybe setting up a trigger or whatever, right? So you have different places in which you can use this. You have different places in which you can use that. If you're working with Google Analytics, okay. There's one important thing I forgot to tell you. There's one important thing where we use regex extensively in Google Tag Manager is regular expressions table. We call it Regex Table. You see Regex Table. I have used this. If you took my Facebook Pixel course, you'll understand. What I have done is here I have given something called transaction value. I don't know. Let me check. The total price. See, so what I have done is I give an input here. This is the custom JavaScript value variable which will read the revenue. For example, if you come to my site and you buy a product worth of 10,000, or you make a transaction of 20,000 with different products, doesn't matter. But the final transaction value is stored here. So I'm giving it in the regex table, and I say if the value of 12,000 is, remember in last video I showed you my website where I can go and create regex tables, regex range generator, numeric range generator. So this is how I used to, when we work on an e-commerce site, we can't just say, hey, you purchased. You want to, put them into different buckets based on the value of the product they purchased. So I say anybody who bought something from 1,000 to 6,000 rupees.
Hey Vardhan, welcome back to Measure Marketer.
I can take this regex, and this regex, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it here. That means whenever people buy a product, and this value will read the product, the transaction value, and the transaction value that it reads, if it matches with this pattern, then I used to say mid value. Anybody who purchases more than 10,000 rupees, Prashanth. Anybody who purchases more than 10,000 rupees. So what I used to do is, I used to put like this, 10,000, more than 10,000. So I simply say anything they purchase more than 10,000 rupees to maybe 100,000, I can simply write it here. I could take it. So anytime people buy a product whose value is more than 10,000 but up to 1 lakh rupees, I can say high value customer, right? And this final outputs is stored in this variable, and this variable I used to put in in an event. If I'm sending an event called lifetime value, this value I'll put it there. I will not put the value of the product that you purchase or value of the transaction. I am segmenting that based on the value of the transaction to high value and low value and mid value, and send this value, high value, low value, as a lifetime value along with the lifetime value. You will understand more about it if you take my pixel course. It's important. Without that, you will not understand. I'm only teaching you where regex will be applicable, but I'm not going to teach you in depth as to where and how in Google Tag Manager. That's a separate course. If you have to learn Google Tag Manager, you cannot learn Google Tag Manager without learning regular expressions. But there are certain situations wherein if you're small stuff like I told you, different quantifiers, single characters, meta characters, if you're comfortable with that, you can really rule the game. Right. So regular expressions table, regex tables. The objective of regex tables is this: when the input variable matches with the input, when the input variable matches with the input, the corresponding output value is stored in the variable. That is the regex table, right? You can use them in different conditions. I told you, if your example, in analytics, you have something called content groupings. That means what you do is anybody comes to a site, analytics will record it, but I want to group them based on different categories. If you come to pixel pages, I want to put them into pixel, right? So in analytics, I can go and see by category how many people have come to pixel pages, how many overall pages for pixel content. So what I can do when I send a page view to analytics, now you see, you send a page to universal analytics. I'm not talking about the analytics 4. I simply go here, overriding the events. I go more settings. Here you have something called content groups. In content groups, you can specify the index, whatever index you create. Maybe it is 4. So here I used to put value. What value? Regular expressions. Right? I can put the regular expression value. What value? The regex table that I've created. Right? The input I'll give pixel. If it is pixel, I'll give the output as pixel content. I'll put Google Ads or Google AdWords. Or so whenever you go to any page whose URL is Google Ads or Google Ads, I'll group them into one content category called Google Ads. Similarly, Facebook ads. So I can group all this content and tell analytics to group all of them. How do I do that? By using something called content grouping. And in the content grouping here, I can directly use it. I have to use a variable here, and that variable can be anything. Or you can give a static value. But rather than that, use a variable here. That variable is a regex variable, regex table variable. Right? So regex is an important skill. It is important that you learn it. And really, I'm telling you, I've seen hundreds of profiles. Out of 100 of them, not everybody can say I'm excellent with regex. So it's always a critical skill to possess, and it'll really give you great confidence if you want to really survive and grow in this whole world of analytics and digital marketing. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next lesson with something different. Thank you.